So do you guys in Philadelphia believe in ghosts? Because I sure do. But then again, should we really be calling Shayne Gostisbehere ghost? Because he doesn't hide away from the moment. He relishes in it. 4 overtime goals, a 15-game point streak. Mr. Gostisbehere is a stud buffet. Caleb Weiler and Brian Wright are both here. That is correct. The Bitterbirds are adding new members to the squad. We're going to bring them on shortly. But, well, Shayne Gostisbehere is awesome. I just had to say it again. All right, so let's start with Caleb. Caleb, on Monday, had one of the best days of his life. And, well, I'll let Caleb talk about it.
All right, so Monday, the best day of my life, the Flyers won. But before the Flyers won, I had taken my then girlfriend to the game, and we were both huge Flyers fans. And long story short, we got engaged at the game. It was great. They brought us flowers, prize packs, put our names on the big board. It was definitely a night to remember. So as lifelong Flyers fans, best night of my life.
And tell us about who came into your suite.
All right, so we had club box seats, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and he goes, "Hey, I just heard you got engaged. Mind if I take a picture with you?" And lo and behold, it was Brian Propp who had come into the suite to wish us a happy engagement. So that was really, really cool.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Congratulations to you. I am still single, so I'm still working the field, but lucky for you, you're all locked up, you're good to go, and you got the love of your life, man. Congrats.
Thank you very much.
Now let's bring on Brian Wright. Now Brian is a guy that used to work with me at the Sports Network. He was in the newsroom, and then he decided that he was too cool for us, and he moved to the soccer room. So let's introduce Brian Wright to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, nice to be here. I, like you said, I've worked with you fine folks at the Sports Network newsroom for a while, and got lucky and went over to soccer, and now I'm doing some freelance things, and hopefully I can contribute some good conversation to the Flyers beat here.
Yeah, and possibly we'll get you on and do some Union stuff as well, because I know you're a huge fan.
It's kind of my mission to bring people into the Union. And unfortunately, they, despite the fact that they're a 6-year-old, now going on 7-year-old franchise, they had the same fate as every other Philadelphia team. So hopefully this year will be different. But I'd like to do some contributing of them too if we get a chance. But right now, it's all about hockey.
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk about the Ghost, the one and only. And guess what? Philadelphia has him and you don't. All right, let's talk about this 15-game point streak. 5 goals, 13 assists during the streak. Just an incredible stretch for this rookie defenseman. Paul Coffey had the all-time record for a defenseman at 28 games. Paul Stastny had the all-time record for a rookie defenseman at 20 games. Guys, just how amazing was this streak?
It was definitely pretty amazing because if you think about it, way back in the day when Paul Coffey was scoring at that rate, the goalie pads were smaller, the nets were a little bit bigger, so it was easier for them to score. People were scoring like 200 points in a season, 150 points in a season, and now last year the Art Ross Trophy winner only had 80-some points, so it really wasn't a lot. So to really put that into perspective, Gostisbehere getting having a 15-game point streak was really impressive.
It's definitely an impressive feat, especially considering he's a defenseman. You generally don't see that type of production out of a defenseman. And what's more, if you guys watch these games, those overtime winners he scored, these aren't just points. They're big points. Overtime winners, assists on game-winning goals. The kid clearly relishes the spotlight, and I think he's only going to thrive as he gets older.
Yeah, and I believe in terms of the franchise marks, the rookie record was 10 games, and I believe Eric Lindros has the all-time record of a 19-game point streak back in 1998 and 99. So just amazing things going on in Philly with this rookie just electrifying the entire league.
Yeah, that's very true. Lindros came into the league, people were heralding him as the next great one, and just to see Ghost come in and be able to do something like that in 15 games and in a environment where it's really not normal for any rookie, let alone a rookie defenseman, to be scoring that many points, that many clutch points in that many games. Because all his goals this season have either been goal tying or game winning to change the lead. So it's been really impressive for him to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And again, the fact that he's a defenseman cannot be overlooked. Because generally when those young defensemen come up, you want them to focus on being solid in their own zone and then develop their offensive game. He already has the offensive game. So you're looking at a rare talent here.
Yeah. And let's talk about what makes Ghost so great. So the Flyers are 5-8-3 without him, but they are 24-15-11 with him in the lineup. He got recalled from the Phantoms on November 14th, and he's raised the club's, in terms of the standings, they've gone from 14th, and now they're 9th, 5 games behind the Penguins for that last playoff spot. Just incredible.
Yeah, so like Brian had mentioned, he already has the offensive abilities. He has a great vision. His shot from the point is pretty unparalleled, especially his one-timers, and he's good on his skates. His sister's a figure skater, so he's really good, figuring out how to move around the ice, jumping plays. He just really has a good head on his shoulders, so his brain really is the best thing that he has going for him, I believe.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, as you can see, with like we mentioned, he's not the biggest guy for the fact that he's a defenseman, but it's his ice vision that makes him great. He's calm in the clutch back there. I think when he's on the ice, the other 4 guys calm down and play better in front of their goalie, which is why you've seen those, that ridiculous save from Michael Neuwirth a week or so ago against Minnesota. If that's Mason, or if Ghost isn't on the team to provide that calming influence, I'm not sure he makes that save.
And let's get into the figure skating thing, because I find that really, really awesome, because he can do circles and stuff. So that reminds me of the Mighty Ducks. What was her name that used to do the circles in front of the net?
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen the movie in years.
I know. It's not. Oh man, see, now after this show, I'm gonna watch all the movies.
Yeah,
all Mighty Ducks. There we go. All right. Let's get into the next topic here, because he has been so revered in Philadelphia very, very quickly. I mean, we love him. Obviously you see Caleb there. He's got the Gostisbehere jersey hanging up on the wall. Why is he so revered? What is it about him that has captured this city?
Yeah, so not to be so cliche, but Philly fans really love their underdogs. Ghost was a 3rd-round pick. He didn't play juniors. He played in college, and, people don't see his college competition as high as junior competition. He came into the league late. He was injured all of last year. So for him to just come up in a spur-of-the-moment need and an injury really just brings all of Philadelphia behind him, because people just love that type of underdog story.
Yeah, that's very well put. And I think you mentioned he didn't play in juniors. He played in college. He didn't play at a humongous college program either. Union College, good hockey program, but it's not a Boston University. It's not a Boston College. And the fact that he had the ACL tear and was able to come back from it pretty quickly, I think everybody in the city knew, okay, we got this kid with the funny name who's a pretty good defenseman. And we kind of had hope for him, but then once he came up and he started dazzling us on the ice, it's just like, wow. And now when you go to the game as a fan, you're looking for the star players. You're looking for Giroux. You're looking for Voracek. But if you have a game where they played a couple of days ago where both Giroux and Voracek were out, you have Ghost in there, which still makes people say, I want to go see him because this kid is that good.
Yeah, and Caleb really put it perfectly. Hit it on the head. We love an underdog story here in Philadelphia. Obviously, we got the movie Rocky. We got Vince Papale. They immediately come to mind. And, like Brian said, he came from a tiny college, Union College. It was the only school which really aggressively recruited him. He got passed by the first year he was eligible in the NHL draft. And speaking of Union College, Philly got its first glimpse of him in 2014. Played in the Frozen Four. We hosted it. He had what did you say it was? 6 points in that game, Caleb? That is incredible. They beat Powerhouse Minnesota 7-4 to win it all. So underdog story, everything. I mean, we're just eating it up.
Yeah, it was really amazing. The most crazy stat about that game was the fact that he went a +7 in a 7-4 game. So he was on the ice for all goals scored and off the ice for all goals scored against, and that just like blows your mind because you think Gostisbehere offensive talent, you don't really think defensive stalwart, which he showed he can do it in that championship game.
The guy's got everything. I mean, you're going to get into a little later some of the potential future Flyers defensemen that are coming up. I think this kid could be your top pair #1 defenseman for 10 years or more.
Yeah, yeah, and well, obviously he's a rookie right now, and that brings up the Calder Memorial Trophy. No Flyer has ever won it. Well, Ghost just got robbed, right, of the Player of the Month. Connor McDavid won it, so that's a ton of bullshit there. So let's get into the Calder Trophy. Where do you think he's going to end up in terms of the standings?
I think right now he's probably in a three-way race with McDavid, Panarin, and himself. And the only reason he's really in that race is because he's a defenseman. He's scoring at a crazy pace right now. I read a stat somewhere that he is the highest point per games per 60 minutes that he's on the ice, and that's out of like all the defensemen. And that might have changed after his streak, but still, that's an amazing feat. Panarin right now is almost scoring at a point per game pace, and McDavid is obviously McDavid. He's pegged to be the next Crosby, Gretzky, whoever you want to compare him to. But the fact that Ghost is a defenseman and has single-handedly brought the Flyers from the basement of the league into playoff contention should really bode well for his Calder Memorial Trophy chances.
Absolutely, and as you said, as Caleb said, the fact that he's a defenseman really, I think, elevates his standing in that Calder race. I think, though, he's up there, but you look at somebody like McDavid, who may get a little bit more of an edge because he scores. He's got the opportunity to score a little more because he's forward and he was a #1 pick, and people think he's going to be the next Crosby. Which, if you watched him when they played the Flyers a couple days ago, kid's pretty good, despite the fact that he's only played 30 games and he missed a month and a half with that knee injury. Or that wasn't a knee. No, it was a broken collarbone. Yeah. And then you also have, I would put in there, maybe you have Jack Eichel from the Sabres, Dylan Larkin from the Red Wings also has an opportunity, but I still think he shouldn't be overlooked. Like I said, the fact that he's a defenseman really helps his case.
Yeah, and I don't. It seems like he's not going to win it. I would think too that he got brought up a little later. That might hurt his chances as well. But looking back in Flyers history, Ron Hextall was runner-up in the standings, 1987. And it's just insane that he finished runner-up because he won the Vezina Trophy that year at the ripe old age of 22. Posted at 3.00 goals against average to go along with a 90.2 save percentage. So Luc Robitaille was the guy that beat him out there in that year. But I referenced it just seconds ago. Do you think because he got brought up a little later, that's going to hurt him?
Yeah, I would think so. I think had he put up this point per game pace that he's putting up now all year, he would probably finish somewhere up around like 60, 70 points, which would put him up among the league scorers. I think Erik Karlsson's probably scoring around a point per game pace, but other than him, maybe Brent Burns. Not too many people are scoring at a pace like that for defensemen. So I think just the fact that he is a defenseman and scoring at that pace, if he was doing it for a full season, probably would have helped out his chances a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I think if he had made the Flyers right out the gate and had played the whole season, he would be leading the race.
Yeah. All right, let's get into his size. He's only 5'11", 180 pounds. Your preferred defenseman's about 6'1", 210. Do you guys see this as a problem?
So I actually just mentioned Erik Karlsson. Did a little bit of research on him. He reigning Norris Trophy winner, scoring tons of points all the time. He's 5'11", 180. So really just to put that into perspective, like it's really about more how you use your body and use your brain in the game as opposed to your size. So if you really want like a shutdown defenseman, which Ghost isn't, he's more of an offensive powerhouse. You want someone who's, like you said, 6'2", 6'3", a little bit more bulky. But if you want a guy who's going to jump into the play and really help out your team offensively, he's a really good size for that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think his size is a big issue. The game's changing. Back in the Broad Street Bully days, and then if you go forward to the Lindros Leclerc days, where everything was about we need the biggest guy possible to just, like when Lindros came up, the guy, he had the perfect blend of size and skill. That doesn't quite it doesn't quite work that way anymore. You see little guys like Nathan Gerby thriving. So the fact that he's a little bit undersized doesn't seem to be an issue, and you can tell in his play. It's all about his calmness and his vision with the puck, and it just the fact that he's a little bit smaller, it doesn't really have too much of an issue.
Yeah, and just a follow-up question on this. Does he have to change his game? Because over the course of the season, a guy that's 180 pounds, there's some wear and tear there. Does he have to change the way he plays a little bit, as opposed to like a normal defenseman?
Yeah, I mean, you do see him get knocked around a little bit more than the other defensemen. Like when Luke Shen was here before he got traded, and you see Streit, who's a little bit bigger. When they take people on the bodies, they're not getting knocked off as easily. So as opposed to taking the body, I would recommend Ghost, do more stick work, which he does. It's not really about, kids. He's not going to be able to overpower a 6'1" power forward. Like if he was going up against Wayne Simmons, that wouldn't really work out well for him. So he's really just got to use his stick and make sure that he's keeping himself between the offenseman and the net to make sure that he's stopping their play.
Yeah, and for him, like we said, it's less about brawn and more about brains and positioning.
Okay. All right, moving on. He's 16 months removed from an ACL tear, which is pretty incredible that he's doing all this after a knee injury. A guy myself that's torn my ACL before, there is some hesitancy when you come back. So to see him do all this, removed from a knee injury, I mean, it's pretty incredible, I think.
Yeah, it is definitely incredible. And before he had torn his ACL when he was playing in the AHL, he was scoring at a point-per-game pace, 7 games, 7 points, then he tore his ACL. And I think the thing that's really, really impressive is that he came back, he started in the AHL, and then was an emergency call-up because of Mark Streit's injury. So the fact that he doesn't even have that much seasoning in a professional league, and he's still doing this on top of tearing his ACL and being out for almost a year, is just incredible.
Yeah, it really shows his grit and determination to come back quickly. And like you said, he didn't really play in the AHL very long. He gets the emergency call-up because of Streit's injury, which was a torn hip muscle or something terrible where he was out for a couple of months. He slides right in there, and the kid's a natural. He's not afraid of the big moment. He's clearly ready to play with the big boys, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the call-up, because Ron Hextall has a little bit of a reluctance to bring these young kids up. Well, what's up with that? Well, what's up? He's talented as hell. Why isn't he in the NHL sooner?
Yeah, well, I think when you look at the Flyers as a whole, last year they had the 7th overall pick, so that means they were like 23rd worst in the league. You don't really want to put a rookie into the fire like that. So calling him up last year, had he not been injured, they probably still wouldn't have done that anyway, because in the AHL you're going to get more playing time, you're going to get more chances to develop. So they want to bring them up at an opportune time where it's really going to help the team when they're at the peak of their development. So it's really not beneficial to bring Ghost up when he's going to be on a team that's losing night in and night out.
That's true. And I think when you compare the way the farm system and the calling up process works in hockey as opposed to the other sports, I think it's most similar to like a baseball, where you draft a guy, like a Travis Konechny, one of those type of players, where you draft somebody, he plays in juniors, then he goes to the AHL. You don't generally draft a hockey player and see him make an immediate impact on the NHL roster right away, unless you're Crosby. So the fact that he, has gotten the call up for Streit and just seemed to thrive in it, and he's clearly there. And then as far as Hextall, I think he is taking the exact opposite approach to building this Flyers team as opposed to like their history. The history of the Flyers says what? Ed Snyder's got a lot of money. He wants to win as quickly as he can. He's going to spend big money. It doesn't always work because it hasn't worked in 40 years. But Hextall got away went to the Kings, won a couple of cups, saw how to do it, and now he's applying that here. So he's a little hesitant to bring up guys right away, but it's better for their development in the long run.
Yeah, and that's a great point there, and a topic for a show for the future. Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. All right, so we've been so positive about Ghost, but we are in Philadelphia, where we're known as being Negadelphians. So let's talk about some weaknesses in Ghost's game and what you'd like to see him improve on.
All right, so like we had mentioned earlier, his size, while not really a problem, he does have to adjust his game to be able to use that size in his advantage, kind of like a leverage. He's really fast. Like you saw that in the Toronto game where he extended his point streak. He burst off the ice, got that game-winning goal. So I think while he's really fast, his size does not bode well for him in a league where there are a lot of bigger forwards. So he really just needs to be able to buckle down, stay on his man, and not really lose them if they're going to bump him off the puck.
I agree. That's more of a positioning thing. He's got to stay on his guy, and he's really got to pick his spots. You've seen in the course of the games where he jumps into the play really well, but he's got to continue to do that. He can't go down into the trenches. He generally doesn't, but you don't want him to get along the boards and get crushed. You don't want him to go down too deep into the zone. He's got to be smart in order to stay afloat in the NHL and thrive, and I think he's doing that.
Okay. Brian, you brought up earlier how you think Ghost can be the top guy for the next 10 years for the Flyers. So let's talk about that. How good can he actually be? Where do you think he's going to rank among the top defensemen in the NHL?
It's an excellent question. I think he can get pretty high up the list. I don't know if he's going to be the best defenseman in the league, but he's got the talent right now to be definitely the best defenseman on the Flyers in the coming years when they start getting rid of some of the older players like in Mark Streit, like in Andrew McDonald. And you want to see them continue to move in the youth direction, which they are. But I think you're seeing his skill set perfectly fits the way the NHL works right now, with the exception of the fact that he's a little smaller, but we've already covered that. But I think the way he moves the puck, the way he can see the ice, the way he makes the passes, the kid's got everything that you would want in a modern NHL defenseman. As long as he stays healthy, I think he can be the number one defenseman, at least for this team, for a very long time.
Yeah, and like Brian said, I think he does lack some qualities to be able to be the best defenseman in the league, and in my opinion, right now, it's Erik Karlsson's league to lose. He's only 25 years old, already has a Norris Trophy. He just does everything for that Ottawa Senators team. But for the Flyers, he does have the potential to be a number one defenseman, but the thing that blows my mind is that Provorov and Sanheim are still listed above him as better prospects. So just like put that into perspective, Ghost is only our third best defenseman, projected at least. So next year and the following years, when we see those young guys come up, it's really going to show what kind of team that Ron Hextall is building around players like Ghost and Provorov and Sanheim.
And that brings us to the perfect transition to these young defensive prospects that are going to crack this Flyers rotation in the next few years. Mark Streit, Andrew McDonald, Brian, you just talked about them. These are old guys. We're gonna gotta get rid of the trash. So let's talk about these young guys. Caleb, what do you think about these pups that are gonna be? I've screwed up. These pups that are going to be coming up through the ranks.
Yeah, so I really think that Provorov is really looking to be our best defenseman. We drafted him at number 7 overall next year. He's going to come in, and there's a pretty good chance he's going to make the team next year. I think he's probably going to start on a second-line role. I don't think they're going to throw him to the Wolves right away, but they want to get him playing time because he's not going to be able to – he can stay in juniors, but he can't play for the Phantoms next year. So it's either have him kill his competition or play in the NHL and get better experience. So I have a pretty strong feeling they're going to call him up. Sanheim, on the other hand, is AHL eligible, so he will probably be starting on the Phantoms next year. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Ghost-like scenario where he starts on the Phantoms, someone gets injured or traded, they call him up, and he blows everyone's minds. Sanheim right now is actually at a higher point-per-game pace than Provorov in the juniors, so it's going to be really interesting to see how that that works out. And on the offensive side, We do have Konechny coming up. He's riding an insane point streak right now on his team. And they're saying he got traded from the 67s to the Sarnia Sting because everybody's expecting him to make the roster next year. So I definitely see him cracking the top 6 next year.
I agree. Like you said, I think as far as who's going to crack the roster next year, I think I would bet every dollar I have that Provorov makes the Flyers right out of the gate next year. He's been dominating in the Western Hockey League where he's playing. I think you're also going to see Sanheim make the jump. Sam Moran is in the AHL. He, I think, is a little bit lesser overrated prospect, but he's been doing well in the Phantoms. I think you might see him next year. Konechny may need a little more time, but I think eventually, once all these pieces come together, this team is going to be really, really good. They still need more scoring as far as the wings are concerned, because Konechny's a centerman, so you still need a little more scoring on the wings to complement Jake Voracek. But these guys, like I said, if I had to bet every dollar I had that Provorov makes the Flyers from the get-go next year, I would make that bet.
Yeah. All right. Other news and notes from the week. We signed Michael Raffl to a 3-year, $7.05 million extension. That was on Sunday. So, thoughts on that signing?
I think that was a great signing. I look at Raffl, he's a great possession player. I think, you look at him as a younger Matt Reed. Raffl's 27, Matt Reed's 29, and Raffl's cap hit, in today's hockey where the Canadian dollar is not so great, the cap is projected to go down next year. It's only 2.35 for the year for 3 years, as opposed to Matt Reed, who's signed at 3.625 for the next 3 years as well. So I could see Reed getting dealt before next year's trade deadline, maybe in the offseason. So I think as someone who can move up and down the lines like Raffl can, it was a really good signing.
I agree. I think it was a very good signing. I have to admit, when the signing was made, it did make me raise my eyebrows a little bit because I wasn't sure the Flyers valued him that highly. But as far as on-ice production, the kid's very good. He's quick on the wings. He's a good passer. He doesn't mind getting his skates dirty. Getting in the puck battles. And I think over the course of the trade deadline, some teams were calling in asking about him, and the Flyers' response was that they want 2 second-round picks for him. So that'll show you just how highly they do value him, and I think he's going to be a good contributor for the next few years. Certainly helps with the forward depth that we previously talked about that they do need.
Okay. The trading deadline, it came and went. Flyers didn't make a big splash. Would you guys have pulled the trigger on a trade?
Well, when you look at it in the NHL, you can only retain up to 3 salaries a year. So right now they're retaining salary on Grossman, Schenn, and LeCavier. Schenn and LeCavier they had traded prior to the deadline, so that was probably their big move for the year. It really wasn't a seller's market. You saw Brandon Peary go from Florida to Anaheim for a 6th-round pick, which was really 2nd-round value. So I really think Hextall was standing pat on what he valued his players at instead of just selling them to get rid of them. I could see players like Schultz and Streit being dealt next year, and like I said, Matt Reed, all those supplementary players, but we need to make room for the young guys where I could see them being dealt next year.
Yeah. Now, Hextall, to me, as we talked about his philosophy with bringing players up, he's also not the type of GM that just makes trades for the sake of making trades. He's going to look at the long-term future of the club. If it doesn't benefit the long-term future, he's not going to do it. So I think the fact that he stood pat is a good thing for the team. And you saw there wasn't a ton of movement during the biggest deal, I think, was Eric Staal to the Rangers, which was kind of a big deal because he's played in Carolina his whole career. But other than that, not really a lot of movement. Personally, I would have been okay had they made an attempt to get Jonathan Drouin from the Lightning, but again, it'd have to be at the right price. If the Lightning said we want Braden Schenn and Couturier and like a couple of draft picks, you don't do it.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the current standing. Flyers are at 69 points, 5 points behind the Penguins. They had a disgusting loss on Thursday to Edmonton. 4-0. Ew. What was up with that?
Man, I wish I could wrap my head around that loss. It was awful. They came out of the gate. Edmonton's a really solid young team. They've had 4 or 5 first overall picks in the last 5 or 6 years. They're really just stockpiling that speed and that youth movement, which the Flyers really don't have right now. Our defensemen are a little bit older. They're a little bit slower, and you really saw that on the first goal where McDavid just blew by Medvedev. So I really think that the Flyers were just, playing down to their competition like they normally do. I would expect to see a big rebound tonight against the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, I try my best not to perpetuate the Negadelphia stereotype that we have, but man, that was like typical Flyers. We get close. I think going into that game, they were 3 points out of a playoff spot, and you get blitzed at home by a solid, if shaky, Edmonton team with a career backup in there and Cam Talbot, and they can't solve them. And now they're 5 points back, I think. 5 points back in Pittsburgh for the last playoff spot. Not a terrible place to be in, considering they've still got a couple games left with Pittsburgh. But if you're going to make the playoffs, that's a game you cannot lose at home.
Yeah, I'm with you guys there. All right, so that's pretty much it for this show. We're going to get into final thoughts right now. So before we end this, what do you want to say before we go?
All right, so before we go, I just want to say, really looking forward to the Flyers game tonight. They're playing the Blue Jackets. Steve Mason's getting his first start in at least over a week. I really want to see how he rebounds to the negativity that the media has been giving him. Neuwirth has been starting. He's been really solid minus, the Oilers game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Mason come back against his former team tonight.
I would echo that sentiment. After a terrible home loss like that to Edmonton, they've had some trouble with Columbus in the past. They've also, because Columbus isn't that good, and they've definitely played down to Columbus in previous meetings. But I think head coach Dave Haxtell, won't let that happen, considering they're now in the thick of a playoff spot. Haxtell has shown he's going to ride with the team he has by not making a trade. I think they're going to come out and just blitz Columbus. Maybe three first period goals, and I think they're going to have an easier time with Columbus tonight. But still, this is after the Edmonton performance, this is a game you have to win, and I think they'll do it.
Yeah. All right. That about wraps it up for this show. Next week, our topic is gonna be the goalie situation, which Caleb just kind of brought up a little bit there with Steve Mason and Michael Neuwirth. So we'll talk about that for our next show. And well, as for this one, we're out of here. Caleb, congratulations again. Caleb Weiler, Ryan Wright, I'm Adrian Fedke. Guys, take care and go Flyers. Let's get back in this playoff race.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Later, guys.
See ya.